Hello, this is the Side Show. I'm Theodore Parker, and today is Wednesday, September 14th, 2022. Around here, the temperature is about 55, going up to 79. The HUI, air quality index, is good. Speaking of mask, as I do every time I get on to broadcast, positivity rate. If in your area it is more than 5%, the suggestion is to wear your mask if you are going out in public. Maybe not so much outdoors, quote unquote, but once you decide to enter a building around other people, put your mask on. And it just might help reduce that positivity rate to a more reasonable level. 5%. Today, I was talking to you yesterday about the professor. Her name is Van at Carnegie Mellon University. And as the comments rolled in about her comments about the Queen, one of the people that waded in was Elon Musk, since it was on Twitter. So the two things kind of like dovetail. So the shareholders at Twitter, in the news and going back and forth about this $44 billion purchase of Twitter that Elon was involved in. And his comment in regards to Professor Van was that a person who is supposed to be a teacher should kind of watch the comments that they put out in public. So now the shareholders of Twitter, after much going around, debate, and probably decision making in regards to the request by Elon Musk, have decided to go ahead and sell Twitter to him. So we'll see. As far as the railway people are concerned and their union sit down, they decided to halt grain deliveries related to agriculture prior to the sit down, which I think is scheduled on Friday. In California, they had an earthquake. But then again, they average about 25 earthquakes per year, magnitude 4.0 to 5.0. There is a website called Unshaken, which allows you to get information in regards to earthquake preparedness or readiness. According to them, it is a 6-week process. So if you're in that area and it's a pertinence to you, you can follow up. Since the world is still involved in the passing of Queen Elizabeth II and the crowning of King George III, family members are still in the news. In our instance here in the United States, we kind of focus on Harry and Meghan. So, since they were left out of some of the things that were going on, there's some comments that some of Harry's attitude might be attributed to Meghan. The big thing about England is the media just weighs in on people in the news, politicians, the royal family, etc., without much regard for how they choose their words. So, one of the decision-making processes that Harry used in quote unquote separating himself from the royal family and coming to live in the United States is that his mother was a United States citizen. But after the tragedy that involved Diane, coming up as a young boy, I'm quite sure once he started attending school, children sometimes have a tendency to say things that are not always appropriate. So being the youngest, he kind of grew up in that atmosphere. But he had already developed that attitude before he met Megan and got married to her. So you cannot put that on her. And even though during the visit, when they were handshaking and in front of the crowds, there were a few remarks that were made, but she handled it well. Duchess of Sussex. Nuclear fusion, according to scientists, is about 6 years away as an energy source. Don't know much about that, seen some pictures and stuff, hydrogen and all that type of thing, but we'll see what comes out of that one. California again, earlier in the week, and this is a tragedy that seems to be repeating itself in regards to rappers. I say to myself, I don't know how they choose their names and so forth and so on, but that's not my thing, so I just go with it. But in this particular instance, on Monday, 30-year-old rapper PNB Rock was shot to death at Roscoe's Chickens and Waffles in LA. And the storyline goes that he is a Philadelphia rapper and he relocated to LA with his family, young lady and I think a daughter. And in the particulars of the incident is that they had went to Fairfax, which I would imagine is like a huge shopping area, to do some shopping, and were on their way back and stopped at Roscoe's. And in the process of being there, I guess it's known, I have no idea, never been there, don't know what it is, other than what the media says. Some people spotted him, noticed he had on jewelry and things of this nature, and decided to rob him, which resulted in him being shot to death. Out of that, because I'm gonna say his wife, girlfriend, mother of his child was with him, Stephanie, and she had just posted some things on her Instagram account in regards to what they were doing. You know how people do it. My family does it, et cetera, et cetera. Oh, we're over here having crabs. We're over here doing this or that and the other, and so forth and so on. So she took the opportunity to do that, or took the occasion to do that. So there's been some feedback from female rappers, Nicki Minaj and Megan Thee Stallion, I think it is. Nicki says she shouldn't have done that, shouldn't have told anybody where she was at, et cetera, et cetera. And this is how opinions go, all right? Because Megan says there's probably no correlation between what she put on her Instagram account to what happened to PNB Rock, because they had no way of knowing, what was on her Instagram account or how to access it or anything else like that. So that's just like two opposite opinions. But tracing the timeline, DJ Academics interviewed PNB Rock a while ago, and he was speaking about the difference between attitudes of people in Philadelphia and people in this area of California. And history kind of bears that true under this particular area, especially involving young rappers, because they don't even have a chance to really get their careers off the ground before they're involved in some type of altercation or beef or whatever term you want to use for it. And then there's a loss of life. So in this interview with DJ Academics, he was emphasizing that in Philadelphia, people, of course, he used a lot of N-words and a lot of expletives, 30 years old, he's just talking, having a conversation, neither here nor there. So with the N-words thrown in and the expletive and the profanity thrown in and so forth and so on, he's expressing the differences. So he says that in Philadelphia, people are like quiet with all that. You know what I'm saying? I don't like you, I don't like you, that's it. You know what I'm saying? You come to California, they're like loud, they're bold with all of that. So he had mentioned the particular incident where, again, him and his family were out, and they had some rappers had seen them, and they were getting loud, insinuating in the language and everything else like that. And he was trying to maintain the atmosphere of being a family man with his child present and his woman present, but they were still going at it. You know what I'm saying? Still going at it. So his wife, I'm gonna say his wife, fiance, was not really aware of how the conversation was taking this trend, going in this direction. So he suggested that they leave. PNB Rock suggested that they leave. And she was saying, well, why we gotta leave? You know, this is cool right here where we're at. She's oblivious to all this stuff, but he's alert to it. So finally she agreed to leave, but they went and stopped at another convenience store, whatever it was. And it just so happened that these same group of guys, loud, boisterous, making insinuating remarks and everything, followed them and went into the store as well. So when PNB Rock comes out, at this point, he says he's like steps to him and say, well, look, I'm not into all that. You know, that's not me. I don't do all that. I'm not about all that. You know, I'm with my family. I got my child here, and we just conducting our business. So that was kind of like they just left. So that kind of set the stage for this incident. So it resulted in him, you know, being robbed. But on this point, when it comes to rapping, a lot of these young guys don't even make the career around the corner turn before they're in jail or dead. So this was kind of like the incidents with this with him. But PNB Rock had kind of got into the point where he had a sign with Atlanta Records and things of this nature. So it was prudent for him to move to LA or move to California to further that with his fiance and daughter or child. But then it gains a timeline again of all the things that have happened right in that same area of Inglewood or nearby previously. You know, most notably is Nipsey Hussle, I'm sorry. And but what distinguishes Nipsey from everybody else is that he did win a Grammy, whereas everybody else is still in that pre-struggling, about to be recognized stage. Now, so that would leave Nipsey Hussle, Pop Smoke, and then Drake the Ruler. I remember Pop Smoke because he was one of those ones that stated where he was at, this and that and the other, and a little while later he was shot to death. And Drake the Ruler had just beat a life sentence and come out, and he was shot to death while sitting in his vehicle. And all of these guys are like young. So it's a tragedy that's ongoing, and you know, it gets addressed, but kind of like after the fact about the attitude checks and things. So as regards the fact that there's a lot of robberies and things like that going on, you know, if you don't know, I'm gonna tell you, when you buy high-end jewelry, there's usually some kind of identifying mark on it, okay? Even diamonds. But it would take a jeweler, you know, to be able to know where to look and what that identification should look like and what it should be. So in the case of Pop Smoke, it was a Rolex that was taken from him by a 15-year-old, you know, subsequently resulting in him being shot to death. And the Rolex ended up being sold for less than $2,000. So it's like, okay, if you admire what I have on, you know, the jewelry, the drip, and all the other current terms for this generation that's coming along now, tell you where I bought it, you go buy your own. Because taking this, it's already identified as being mine because I purchased it. So it's going to take a different type of mentality to kind of turn this around, you know. And the same thing recently with Nipsey Hussle, the trial holder being convicted, sentenced, and all the rest of it. But it's a definite adjustment to realize that people's lives are not supposed to be lost in this fashion. You know, most of them have children. Children are young. They're in a relationship. They have things going on. They're trying to better themselves, quote unquote. And then you have somebody that's either jealous or crazy. And the result is what you see. So that's out there now. And PNB Rock's proper name is Rakeem Allen from Philadelphia, who transitioned to California. Passing away of an artist, Ramsey Lewis dies at 87. Want to put a little blurb on this one. Lewis spent nearly 60 years recording and performing original jazz music, striking gold in 1965 with the crossover hit, The In Crowd. He won 3 Grammys, scored 7 gold records, and in 2007 was named a National Endowment of the Arts Jazz Master, the highest honor bestowed upon jazz musicians in the U.S. It seems that he attempted to retire off and on, but he said after a few hours or a few days, he was sitting right back down at the piano. So there are interviews and things like that. If you want to access more information about Ramsey Lewis and his career and life, you can do so. Wednesday, September 14, 2022. Got one to kind of go out the door with. Since we're not only on Facebook, I'm not only on Facebook, but on YouTube as well. There was also an item in the news that Google in Europe is being fined a huge amount of money for being the only supplier to Android. I can't exactly remember whether it was like $1 billion or high up in the hundreds of millions, but the European Union has called them to task about that. Google. So the one I was going to mention is, like I say, don't forget to like, comment, and share. That's on both presentations, Facebook and YouTube. Google invites you to do that. Question for you. How tall is Kevin Hart? Well, once you get past his work ethic and the fact that The Rock is considered to be his best friend, or one of his best friends, how tall is Kevin Hart? Usually he's portrayed as, his love interests are portrayed as being a little bit taller than him in the movies. And he is married with children, which he uses in his comedy routines. And he's been successful and has other interests as well, investments and givebacks, quote unquote. So how tall is Kevin Hart? If you want to, you can comment, or I could just give you the answer, but I'll give it a day. I'll make a note. See if you can find out. Let me know. Or let me know what you think, one or the other. Just something to do, people. That's it. Hashtag.